Welcome to episode 300. Holy shit. The boy has made it. We made it, you know? I guess I look like I'm at a Michael Rubin all-white party, you know? Without the Jewish ties. Even though I wear the hat thing that looks like I'm Jewish. Not there's anything wrong being Jewish. I watch Curb Your Enthusiasm, so, you know, I'm within the commune. But yeah, episode 300. Welcome to episode 300 of the Often Be Podcast with Clint Nelson. I'm your host, Clint Nelson. Don't forget to like, follow, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell. But most important, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to suck some titties. Yeah. Recording this 1:30 a.m. Eastern on September 21st, I believe. Yeah, for the archives. It's been a long time getting here. Speaking of a long time getting somewhere, what's with people's obsession with what age they look at, you know? There's this whole fascination with generational aging. You know, back in the day, when you got old, you just, you know, use anti-wrinkling cream. You just did the basic stuff. You know, you put collagen on your skin. Yeah. Put some coconut oil on your taint. Put some coconut flakes on your, kneecaps. Which is a real thing. Apparently it's supposed to smooth out your kneecap skin, which I gotta be honest, when I'm trying to differentiate someone's age, if I'm making an assumption, I'm not like, let me see them kneecaps, you know? That'll tell me everything I need to know. Because there are young people out here with nasty-ass kneecaps, and there are middle-aged older people that have very well-maintained kneecaps. You know, the skin. Someone get a skin graft, because I'm going up and down this line. But yeah, it's pretty much like a seismic earthquake right now with how much this is going up and down. It's like that movie San Andreas with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, which, by the way, not a terrible movie. You know, it's probably not one of those movies that you're going to be like 5 years from now, be like, you know what, we haven't seen in a while? San Andreas, you know? But, you know, you put it on one night, you got nothing else to do. There's worse things you could have done with your time. You know, it's your fault in line. It's crazy that they say that even if we were given a 30-year head start of knowing when an asteroid was going to come or a meteor to come to destroy this planet, there's nothing we could do about it. Which I'm like, yeah, no shit. You know, it's crazy to think that as technologically advanced as we are, that we're just going to put some crazy amount of science into a experiment, put a force shield out in space. I think if we just put this thing to knock a meteor coming 80 million miles per hour and light years down to us and think, like, it's just going to be like a ping pong, you know, paddle. Like, if we just put this paddle up in space, it's just a ping pong. It'll just, you know, go off direction. And it's like, I think we give ourselves too much credit of how genius we are. And it makes us humans really come across as, how do I put this? Stupid. We don't have to solve every problem. It's okay just to accept things for what they are. But yeah. Yep. But yeah, apparently Gen Z is aging like crazy. And there's some things that could be said about that. People say it's stress. People say that it's certain events have happened. That's these events that cause seismic, no pun intended, seismic change in trauma as a country, I guess. And like each generation has had some type of either traumatic event, like war, like Vietnam War, or I forgot with baby boomers, they had like Civil War. I think wherever your great grandparents did. Like where the 1860s, like, you know, those type of grandparents, like were they the evangelical Zoomers or something? But yeah, you know, I think people age. I think the reason why, one, a lot of kids are aging faster is because we're forcing younger kids to be more responsible. We're forcing kids to work at a crazy young age. We're forcing younger people to take on stresses that really a person in their position, 99.9%, should not be taken on. And so with that, it's going to cause a shock to the body of what, you know, we have genetic generational DNA to things. We age based off genetics. But if there are circumstances that cause stresses or causes nerves, then certain things might change, you know. And I think there's just too much put the younger and younger. Each generation, there is more pressure put upon younger people. And that's why we got 23-year-olds that look 35 with full-grown beards. Also, you know, as much as kids don't work out, as much as kids are not outside, it's not that there's not kids outside. It's kids are either obsessed with being outside or they're just not ever outside. So it's either very sedentary kids or you got basically friggin' the next QB at Ohio State type of thing. Like, there's no like in between like, hey, you know, I was a good athlete. My epitome was a sophomore year in college when I couldn't exceed these new recruits that were coming in. But you know what? If I went to a rec center, I would destroy every motherfucker that was there. There's no middle ground athleticism anymore. You are either bottom of the barrel, can't run for a minute without huffing and puffing, or you're competing in the Olympics doing these like 100-meter sprints in 9.8 seconds. There's not really in between anymore. Kids are freaking bench pressing 400 pounds at 17 years old. And we got grown 40-year-old dudes that can't bench 100 pounds. You know? It's crazy. There's just certain requirements that are just more expected. Like, I've been told, I'm fortunate enough and I'm glad about this. People say I look my age, sometimes a few years younger, sometimes a few years older. That's a good range, you know? I don't want to be someone that looks crazy young for my age. But, you know, I understand you don't want to be someone that looks 10 years older than your age either, male or female. But at the same time, I think also what doesn't get taken into account is sometimes people will adjust your age based off how you carry yourself. And that's a positive thing. Like, you can, quote unquote, in the face have facial features of like a 24-year-old, but you're very mature. You dress pretty well. You smell decent. So people automatically are going to think you're older because now the standards are so low for younger people when it comes to appearance that if you just look like you put 10 minutes of effort into your outfit, you're automatically 4 years more mature. So I think that should be taken into account as well. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's all these things I think every generation, a 15-year-old has looked at 15-year-old for based off of what our assumption or bias is at that time, you know. But, you know, not for Diddy. I have not read the whole thing about Diddy, the recent stuff. All I know, he's been cooped up by the police, and apparently it's for real now. He's been brought in, he's been arrested, and now he's on suicide watch. It's like, okay, are we supposed to like feel bad about it or something? Are we supposed to be up in arms, fight for this man to, hey, don't do it. You got a lot to live for. It's like, nah, not really. It ain't going to get much better from here. But I understand the importance of preserving someone from not committing that, because they have so much information that they can still get so much information out of that could solve a lot of cases, right? And there's some of the people doing their time, Except there's been a long history where there's been plenty of times where Diddy got arrested, was part of a lot of instances, shootings at nightclubs, instances where exes all of a sudden randomly died, and then they left in a note saying, damn, he got me. It's like, oh, okay. Which is always weird to me. I will say this when it comes to that. If you feel like your partner is, possibly going to drug you and kill you, maybe don't be with them for the next 4 or 5 years and then be like, they got me. It's like, I want to feel bad for you, but at the same time, and I understand people stay in situations that are scary for your life, and it's hard to leave situations when it's abusive and stuff like that. And at the same time, it's like, well, being stayed in something, you're going to die. You might as well at least try to escape, But, I don't know. Probably being insensitive there. But anyways, Diddy. Apparently this man was having freak-offs and smooching with his mom after. I don't know what that's about, I'm all about being close with your mom, but, it's a little too close for my tongue to twist. So, yeah. Yep. 300 episodes. Speaking of aging, I think I've aged gracefully. I've kind of like in the young to mid 20s range for that type of graph. You see like those 55-year-old dudes who go from, looking like, a 50-year-old dude, and all of a sudden they get a clean shave in the beard, they get on some TRT, they get jacked, they're on some Nutrigenics. They have a nice, they kind of look like that Paul Sklar guy. They have a lot of salt and pepper in their beard, but it's like well put together. All of a sudden they become a millionaire in that same time frame. I think I did the same, well, without the millionaire part. That's a pretty big part to leave out. But, as Chris Stapleton would say, love can't be bought. Love can't be bought, it can't be sold. Something about gold, and for some reason, I'm a millionaire because you love me. He's so lucky he has a good voice, because some of these lyrics are kind of whack. But, yeah. I think I've had that maturation. I dress well. I look like I give a shit. When you consider where I started, it's like every 100 episodes I do this looking back thing. I think it's important, because I think we are evolving creatures. Like, I'm not the same person as I was on June 8th, 2021 when I dropped my first episode. In some ways I am, and in a lot of ways I'm not. It's a whole different life situation. A whole lot of things have changed. The only thing that's the same is the same car. And boy, has it been run through the mud. has she been passed around, let's just say. They always talk about when a girl's been passed around, breaking backs and stuff. Well, it's been breaking on one side. But like, guys talk dirty, like, oh, I'm going to misalign your spine. It's like, well, you misaligned my car. I have completely neglected that beautiful lady. But boy, she's still demanding a lot out of me. Don't worry, I only got 7 months of child support left on that bitch. But yeah. Going through time, I look back at some of the things I have said on the show. I've looked back at some of the questionable inebriations of episodes I've done. I have done a few episodes where I was obliterated, drunk out of my mind. Not even drunk, but a little loosey-goosey. Sometimes you're a little loosey-goosey. You get a little too happy talking about certain things. But at the same time, you don't want to be one of these people that never get loosey-goosey. And you do these shows, and you're just the same way of thinking. Because, they say alcohol. And I learned this recently. Like, they say wine and spirits. And they say the spirits part is because alcohol accesses demonic version. It like accesses the demon version of yourself, your spirit, your evil spirit. And that's why when people are drunk, they do sometimes bad things out of character, evil things. And I guess really is communication. Your communication of thought, not to get too deep in the weeds here. But is your communication of thought by default going to always be the most lowest point of your thoughts, right? Think about it. When you think of something, it is all pure. And when something pops in your head, there's a feeling it gives you. If it's like an amazing idea, you get like, your balls tingle, your butt jingles, your titties start, jiggling. You ever think of something and you just get like that butterfly feeling? You're like, damn, this is what tickling the taint feels like. It's like that new honeymoon phase love feeling type of thing. That's when you get like that immediate thought where it's just the idea. The idea is always more fascinating than the reality. Or the full length equation, let's just say. Everyone's got ideas, but the execution is where things fall apart, becomes uneasy. Because then you have to face a lot of things about yourself where it's like, damn, this part's not realistic. This part sucks. Man, this part about what I think is kind of not relevant. Then you break it down, and you realize that idea has just been boiled down to a minute detail that maybe you could take something from it. But that's it, And, yeah, I forgot what I was talking about. Don't worry, I'll remember. But, god damn. This is what happens when you wear white pants, You start, being comfortable in your own skin a little bit too much. But yeah, so then when you're relaying a thought, you're filtering out, you're saying it out loud. You have to lessen the words, So you lessen the words, which means you're not as specific about it. It communicates. It's like what's it called? The telephone, playing the game of telephone. You tell one person one thing, and then they're supposed to go around the next 10 people say the same thing. Chance already gets around to the 10th person. There's going to be a slight variation of what the original thing that was said. And that's really what communication is. The demonic, I guess the spirit version with alcohol, they say alcohol only makes you act, and alcohol brings what you truly, alcohol will make you act on your true, darkest, deepest thoughts and feelings, right? Like someone could be a great person in everyday life. All of a sudden they drink some alcohol, Brandy from the corner is coming to your hotel room demanding $200 because you haven't paid her for the last 3 visits, All of a sudden, people can be the greatest people on surface. They drink alcohol and their desires are just insane. I always say the more tame you deem a person to be, when they start seeking things to inebriate the way they think, they're gonna be the ones that do the craziest shit. That's why you see these Mormons, not to generalize, but like, look at Zach Wilson, man. This man could have, NFL quarterback, this man could have had any woman in New York City, New Jersey. Now he was married or with a girl at the time. He could have had any woman in the world. Relatively speaking, he's a decent looking guy. Has a lot of money. He's an NFL quarterback, regardless of how good you think he is. This man decides to sleep with, it was either a friend's wife, or he decides to sleep with his mom's best friend. You cannot tell me this man did not consume something to make him do that. Now, no. They're all just kind of in their own little world anyways. But yeah. There's a reason why extremism in any way, like, I think the more honest you are with the realities of the weird, I think we're all capable of doing bad things. Alcohol just makes it a little bit, it does, I do think alcohol, or really just drugs in general, open a pathway that could be very dangerous, obviously. I think we got to be careful with these experimentations with like mushrooms and DMT. I've never really done these things like that, but I think we got to be careful with always wanting to step. I think it's important to step outside of yourself, right? I think the thing, alcohol is accessible, it's cheaper, and it's legal as long as you're of age. So it's like a cheaper, quick way to just funnel into a more looser version of reality, right? I think what alcohol does, it just brings a circadian rhythm in a room. If you have 10 people that are not drunk, 2 hours later, they're all drinking the same thing, and they all get to the same level of drunkenness. They're the same people who went there with the same intentions, but now they're having an orgy, all right? Why is that? Circadian rhythm. I don't even know what circadian rhythm is. But the whole vibe, the spirit, their spirits have aligned to do some wild shit. Now, I had a friend once tell me, if you need alcohol to be interesting, you're not interesting. But don't sit here and think alcohol doesn't make you more interesting, I miss Myron. Rest in peace. But that's what you notice. I don't even know why I started talking about alcohol. I'm not even... Oh, yeah, going back in time. Yeah, no, I was fucked up for some episodes. Looking back in time. And I think the thing is, I know there's going to come a time of day where people, if I ever get, when I get to that level where people actually give a fuck about stuff you have said in the past, they're going to look at episode whatever the fuck 46 talking about something and be like, oh, you said this about that, you going to delete the episode? And I'll probably be like, Probably not. Unless a company's paying me a shitload of money for my show and they're like, hey, if you delete this episode, and I'll be like, sure. I really don't give a shit. I don't remember doing that episode. But go ahead. You know, how much can you be held accountable for things you say or do if you are not in your right state of mind? That's a weird thing as well. It's that weird, because you make a choice, right? You make a choice to get inebriated. Let's just say you make a choice to get fucked up. Whether that's getting insanely high, getting extremely drunk, getting extremely inebriated, and however you want to get inebriated. Like, yes, things can happen when you're inebriated. And that's unfortunate, you know, as a guy. Things can happen to you. You get your ass beat when you're drunk. And yeah, someone took advantage of the fact that you're drunk and beat your ass. But secondly, you got to take accountability for the fact that you decide to get extremely fucked up in a public setting around people you do not know, where you are not in a state of mind to defend yourself or to really have a good awareness of what's happening. Like, you got to take that responsibility and accountability for putting yourself in that situation. That's why, like, I think only one time have I ever been drunk in a public setting. Right? And the reason why that is because I'm very self-aware of, like, you know, especially now, like, to be honest with you, especially now, I do feel like I would be a target for a lot of reasons. Not to make it about main character thing, but depending on certain settings, if you stand out in any type of way, it could be from physical features, hair, when you don't try to fit it. Like, let's say you were go to a social setting, right? A lot of guys and girls, I should say men and women, because, you know, I'm not going to be around guys and girls, I'll be around men and women. You go in social settings, right? It's a lot of competition, you know, without, even if it's like not divisive, like, you're all trying to gain attention from someone, and sometimes you're going to have to fight intellectually to capture someone's attention. And that's quote quote when the having game, as the guys say, having game. Look, having game, it matters, you know? I'm not saying to have the most sophisticated game. I would never say that. But I think the issue is, especially with people that watch too much advice of how to become more attractive or how to become more stand out. The issue is you're following a template that every other guy that's desperate for the same thing you want. And you're all going to basically be the same fucking guy. You're going to have the same fake confidence about yourself. You're going to have the same type of approach. You're going to be very fickle. You're going to act like you don't care. You're going to act like this and that. And you may get some results, but you're going to get the same type of results. And it's not always going to be fulfilling. And so, I think when you're someone that doesn't follow that template, and people sense that, you become gravitational. Guys can build a resistance towards you because you're a threat, even if you're not trying to do anything, which is part of the reason why I don't even go out like that. And I have a lovely lady, but I'm just saying, you know. But not even in that way. Like, if you were just to be in, like, a group of guys, right? You just say you and your best three buds. You go out to a movie theater, right? Let's say, I don't know, you're going to see It 3. I don't know why 4 grown men would go see It 3 together, but hey, you know, you're all clowns under the sewer anyways, desperate for someone to pop your balloon. But if you, like, I know I'm all over the place. This is a very fucked up thing to say, but it is true. There are girls that will purposely have female friends that are significantly less attractive. I don't like to say ugly girls. There's ugly guys and there's less attractive women. There. Does that sound better? But there are women who sometimes it's nonchalantly. They are 8, 9s, and 10s. But they are friends with what the typical scale would be 4s and 3s. That's because when they are with other ladies that are less attractive, they significantly stand out more, you know? Just is what it is. Now, on the guy scale, it's not about, like, you all can be 8 and 9s. But how you come off in a 10-second impression can be the whole thing that separates you from everyone else. If you come off as you think you're hot shit, kind of arrogant, but it doesn't really seem warranted. You're kind of dressed like a douchebag, but not even like a, you know, I'm a fun douchebag type of guy, you know? Then all that work you put into your appearance, it's going to basically just be for nothing, you know? You got to look the part to capture attention, but you also have got to have the gravitas to maintain that as well, if that makes sense. But yeah, I guess the moral of all that is you know, just don't drink unless you actually want to. Don't drink to be more interested. Only drink because you are interested. There. But yeah. I can't believe it's been over 3 years of doing this shit. The crazy part is I did 100 plus episodes, I think, within the first 4 or 5 months of the bitch. I did a third of my episodes within the first 6 months of the show. That just shows you how much time I had on my hands. God, unemployment was a beautiful thing. God, I miss that shit. But that's crazy. You know what's crazy? Is that in a weird way, this podcast, I think, has kind of been a attachment of consistency with my, ever since I started this podcast, it made me change my view on jobs. It made me quit my job a couple months later. I'm not exaggerating. I started the show in June. I think it was the end of July or August or something like that. And I was just on the job. I was not happy at my job or whatever. And instead of doing the right thing, putting your 2 weeks in, it was a late night delivery. It was literally the second to last delivery of the night. But they made me re-deliver some food out that I know I sent out. And it would have been completely free. The person didn't even tip beforehand, which is fine. That's their prerogative. But it was in a faraway shitty part. I've been doing this shit all fucking night. Going out, being the only fucking driver for the past 3 hours. And people think oh, you made, yeah, you make all this money and then you're just dealing with unhappy customers all the fucking time. And trust me, it's whatever, but at the same time, then you have to come back and do a million other things. And I literally dropped the shit off, drove straight home. And there was still an hour left in the shift. And they called me. My job called me. Didn't answer because that's my passive aggressive ass at the time. They never heard from me again. I literally just drove off from the job. That's the crazy part. I just drove off. And I already started my show at the time. This is kind of a little background of how the podcast like changed and shaped my life. And it is weird because I do think this podcast changed my trajectory of finding purpose. It changed my trajectory of forcing myself to... Here's the thing. I think what the podcast did, on a real serious note, behind all the bullshit jokes, behind all the bullshit titties, is it really, when you find something that you just like, it's just like, this is it. Like, I have found it. I found the thing that I enjoy. Regardless if it's going to make me money now, if it's going to make me a living later on. I have found something that I want to do day in and day out, and no one has to tell me to do it. It changes everything in the snap of a finger. After that, I started eating better. I started working out, exercising. It forced me to quit. It didn't force me, but when you find some when you're in this lull of just... Because at the time, man, I was working 2 to 3 jobs, 70, 80 hours a day, living with roommates. Well, not that time. That time, I lived with my brother, who, great living situation. But before that, before that, actually, I lived with some shitty-ass roommates who kind of used me. Paid all the rent. We were supposed to split it going in. I ended up paying all the rent because I was too busy to worry. After 2 months, they could not pay their half of the rent because they decided, oh, I'm going to take a commission job. And you're like, okay. And then, oh, well, I'm actually not selling anything. So, hey, can you cover? 1 month turns into 2 months. 2 months turns into 3 months. Then you come home and there's a fucking pit bull attacking you when you open the door at 3 a.m. The whole house is smelling like weed all the time. The fridge, the power goes off for 4 days because no one paid it. And now your whole fridge smells like mold. Maybe that's why I'm accustomed to fridges being nasty. I've been through it all. Living situations. I've been through it all with job instability. I've been through it working a shitload. I've had a lot of money in savings. I've lost it all. And when you go through all that and you realize, all right, so that's not really what brings me joy. That's not what brings me satisfaction. I don't like the shit that comes with this type of life. And you find something that you listen to all the time. You're like, this is something I think I could do. And then you do it and do it and do it. And there's something about it where it's like, this isn't a temporary feeling. This is actually this is actually a part of me. So it makes you really look at your whole life as a scale. And you realize, like, man, I've been putting on the LBs. But when you put on... Now I'm distracted. But, yeah. Anyways, yeah. Sorry. But yeah, when you actually put on you actually find that thing. You look at everything in your life like, if I don't enjoy this, why am I doing it? So, you hit that natural point where you say, I'm done. And that's what quitting that job did. Then I went 2 or 3 months not having a job. Most of it, honestly, on my own merit. I was not in a rush to get a job. I had enough money in savings and I was okay. Then I was doing the math and I'm like, I need to get a job soon. These bills didn't stop. So, fast forward, I applied for a job, part-time job, and now I've moved up. It's a full-time job, and I went from being bottom of the barrel to the totem pole to only being second to the bottom of the barrel at the totem pole, you know? But it's brought job stability. It's been a lot of good for the most part, but, you know, there's a lot of, you know, it's physically demanding. It's demanding in time and stuff like that. But when you have that job stability attached with still being able to do something you love and enjoy, that's what really it's all about, you know. That's all you can really ask for. And to think of where the starting point I was, who I was as a person, my health, everything of how I was, to 300 episodes later, to see the man here, to see the chair that I fucking bought. I bought a fucking chair. I live in a complete different place. I have a fridge full of food that I bought. I got Wi-Fi that I pay for. Overpriced, but it's here. You know? And that's the thing. Like, there's a lot to be grateful out here for. That's why when I was talking to someone the other day, they found out I had a show too or whatever, which is like a slow trickling effect. A lot of people I know in my daily life all of a sudden know about my daily life. They're like, hey, man, it says you posted like 2 days ago. You're still doing it. Like, yeah, I didn't just stop doing it. I do it less, but I still do it. It's a consistency aspect. And by the way, creatine is a motherfucker. Jesus Christ. She'd be making me pee more than R. Kelly, you know? God, everyone's getting had these days. I will say, dude, creatine, man, I don't know what steroids feel like, but goddamn, I think it's about as close as it gets. But yeah. But nah. It's crazy to watch your trajectory. And people may look at like, oh, that's not that impressive. Like, okay, well, battling the certain things I did over that time, the ups and downs, the fighting through it, the never giving up, the having belief in yourself, having trust in what you're doing. I think there's a lot of value in that. So, 300 episodes later. And I think about, you know, I think every 100 episodes, when I get there, I think about where I was 100 episodes prior. Not to memorialize or but to really see how, like, I think sometimes we feel stagnated. We really feel like nothing has changed in us. Because sometimes you're in a monotony and you think just because you live in the same, you know, apartment, just because you work at the same job as you did X amount of time ago, or, you know, you're in a similar financial situation, or, you know, you don't feel like a whole lot has changed. And you really look back. Just look back at like pictures from 2 years ago. And you remember that time. You're like, I was a whole different way I thought about things then. Like, it's crazy how much our thought process change without even trying. Just time, experience, stuff that we filter out, stuff we care about, stuff we don't care about over years. Like, a lot of that stuff just goes to the wayside. Just wait till I have kids, you know. I'm not going to care about nothing. I'm not going to care about any of this shit out here. Like, I care less and less about shit as time goes on. Even my own shit. You know? But, like, if I have kids, like, I'm sorry, like, I'm not having any of y'all's names saved in my contacts, you know? If I have kids, you know, anytime y'all are talking to me about your identity, I'm going to be like, identity? How about you? Well, let me give you the identity of waking up at 5 a.m. You won't have time to think about your identity. You'll wish you didn't have an identity. You'll wish you can escape to Aruba and be an escaped refugee, escaping your family. And then you could talk to me about identity. Then you could have all the time to create your own identity. Call yourself Muhammad Akbar. I don't know. Even though you're European, go ahead. Then you got time to be like, you know, do I want to be 5'8" or 5'10" on your ID? I don't give a fuck. Then you could talk to me about your identity. Who am I as a person? What's my purpose? Just stick the baby's mouth on your titty. That's your purpose right now, all right? And you, get a fucking job. That's your purpose, bud. Don't wait to have a kid and be like, hey, you know, I really haven't, you know, I really want to know what makes me happy. I don't give a fuck what makes you happy. There. I don't give a fuck. All right. I mean, I give a fuck, but, you know, I don't, well, you know, you got to think outside of yourself. And that's what I always recommend. You know, there's this heavy thing out here with not everyone should have a podcast. And you know what? You're right. Not everyone should. But you should try. Just so you can realize how much you really don't want to do this. Because it's exhausting, you know. Whew. It's like working 16 hours at a steel mill factory. Not really. But it is one of those, like, mentally, like, wiring things you got to really be in a certain zone to do by yourself. It's not as easy as it looks. I can tell you that. In some ways, you know what's weird? It's like when I first did it. It was easy because I was so inspired to do it, right? Like when you have blind inspiration for something, it's easy. Now, whether you have any idea of what the fuck you want to talk about or give a shit about how you want to do it, that's a whole nother thing. But it's easy when you just think like, I'm so fucking interesting, you know, and you're not. Then now, just from when you have all the time in the, like before you have all the time in the world to do it. So it's like, you know, it's free flowing. But now when it's restrictive of time, it's like, man, you know, I got to worry about if I feel like this. If I feel like this, I'm not going to be able to be in my own head, to be able to be fluid. Like all these things you got to think about, you know. And so it's easier in the terms of once I get, like the hardest part is weird. Like when you first start something, the easy part is getting to it, right? It's like when you first start going to the gym. The easy part is going to the gym, believe it or not. Because you think if you just show up to the gym, then you're going to get the results you want. But you realize it's about what you do within the gym. It's about the effort you put in. It's about the patience, the attention to detail. And then over time, when you start getting results and it starts becoming like a job, or it starts becoming like maintaining, or now you were like, it's not just off, that honeymoon feeling of being inspired or aspirational. Like you have to actually put in fluid effort and time into it. Then the hardest part is getting to the thing. But then once you get to the thing, all your like overthinking, anxiety of what you're going to talk about, how you want to start, all of a sudden you press record and all of a sudden shit just starts falling out. Like all these thoughts that you don't know what you want to talk about, shit just starts coming out because it's muscle memory. You put in experience, you put in time. like all that stuff lead. Like, now it's like when you have more experience, or when you know, it's like, once you get to the thing and get everything set up and press record, boom, it'll be fine. The same way when you become more advanced in the gym, sometimes it's like the gym become monotonous, it's time consuming, and then you're like, now I have to drive there, spend X amount of time, do my whole setup, I gotta eat before and all this stuff. It's like, but if I just get there, I'm gonna have the greatest workout and I'm gonna feel great the rest of the day. And once you get to the gym, you start doing a few things, boom. All that stuff that you worried about, the getting in your head is like, this, that, and you get there and everything's good. That's really what it's like. It's weird. It's easy to do things at the beginning, just doing the shit when you don't know what the fuck you're doing. But then when you start getting okay at something and have an idea, knowing what the fuck you're doing, then all of a sudden it's just about getting there. It's weird, It's almost like this entitlement of like, once you prove to yourself that you could do something, the challenge is now that I know I could do it, I got to make it harder to myself by not wanting to do it as often as I wanted to before. It's odd. It's these mind fuckery games we play with ourselves. But yeah, we are Spartan, And yeah, I guess the moral of all this is not to make this a sentimental pod, because again, I waited way too long to do this episode today. But I think the biggest thing today is it's episode fucking 300. That's what it is. It's crazy to think. I guess you could say, what was that thing I did? I guess you could say I sold out. Get it? SOULED, out. Because, because if you drink too much, you technically have sold your soul. Damn, that's actually kind of deep. That's why Diddy always sold Ciroc. I'm pretty sure he was selling you more than Ciroc within the Ciroc. I love, I think it was Phase on Love that said, what are we really punishing Diddy for? For being a freaky ass dude, essentially. It's like, no, I don't think that's really what he said. It seems like he's like, I'm not saying that he's not a weird guy. I'm not saying that he's not he doesn't have some moral conflictions with him, but we're really punishing Diddy for just being really weird and freaky. That's really what he said. That's essentially kind of what he says. Like, it's with the freakiness, how extreme and what it led to, I think is more the thing. And it's gotten to a point where it's like, you can't, even the most complicit of people in that space can't turn a cheek anymore. Even though he was turning cheeks. Apparently he's turning a lot of cheeks. Like so many. Apparently. And I don't want to say this because I feel like this is just gossip. But it's said on like one of these Art of Dialogues, like these Vlad TV knockoff channels, where apparently there's these stories of people just walking in on Diddy doing stuff to guys. Like there's 4 or 5 different. Apparently someone walked in on him doing something to the father of Family Matters, Carl Winslow. I don't believe that. I'm sorry. Like, maybe I'm just naive. Maybe I just don't want to hear it. That just seems like... That just seems like not even relatively... But, like, what the fuck does him, a sitcom actor, what does he get from that? Well, I mean, I guess he gets something. Like even the TD Jakes thing. Now that one, you could kind of see it, you know. I think as someone said a few months ago, TD Jakes giving up the cakes. But I don't know, you know. He always gave off an odd vibe to me. TD. Touchdown Jakes. But yeah. Yeah, I guess I'll leave it at that. The moral of today's episode is, I think I said the moral of today's episode, then I started talking about cakes. So, the moral of today's episode is, trust your intuition. Trust your God's plan. Trust your plan. Trust your plan B as well. Don't forget, there's always a plan B. But no. You know, just trust the path that you feel is right for yourself. Trust when it's time to step away from something. Trust when it's time to... Trust when something feels right. And understand that that thing that feels right or what you're doing, there's a reason why it feels right. It feels oh so good. So yeah, it's like a sticky Cinnabon. So yeah. Alright, that was episode 300 of the Off Beat Podcast with Clint Nelson. I'm your host, Clint Nelson. Probably one of the worst episodes I've done in a while, but hey, you know what? That's what happens when you take 2 weeks off. That's also another thing, by the way, with anything. Don't take too much time off. Like, it really is a real thing. They call it podcast fog. I think it's like if you take 10 or more days off from recording, you will notice a like noticeable just like fall off in your thought process. But if you keep, you know, be consistent with it, and you'll be all right. But yeah, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, hit the notification bell on Spotify and all podcast platforms. Most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to suck some titties. And yeah, have a great day, morning, night, evening, wherever you are on the peninsula, or the hemisphere, or the meteor, or the atmosphere, or the snow globe. Ooh, it's the creatine, baby.